Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of Fintech Garden. Today, me, Dumitru, Condrea, and my co-host Igor, Tomych, we will discuss about banking as a service. We will try to disseminate the difference between what does it mean a banking as a service, what does it mean core banking, what does it mean embedded finance, but accent will be on banking as a service because we hear a lot of the market how people are just messing around with these terms without getting a good definition, a well definition. So our main goal for today's episode is to understand what does banking as a service means. Igor, hello.
Hello, Dumitru, and hello, our listeners. I'm pleased to have this episode because recently I have been having a lot of discussions about those terms, and I think it will be beneficial for everyone to hear our opinion and how we will define those terms, and then maybe slice it a bit for the usage or different vendors on the market and see what are the real cases of the usage. Because fairly, BaaS as a technology is a new approach, and let's see how other companies are using it.
Yes, totally right. Okay, let's try to. My idea is let's give a definition now for banking as a service, and after the discussion, let's come back at the end of our podcast. Let's come to the end of this to see if the definition changed. The definition we gave at the beginning changed. So, in my mind, banking BaaS, banking as a service, is a service that allows non-financial companies to offer banking services, financial services. And as I usually tell this example to everyone, when I worked at Solaris, everyone was asking me around, people who are not in our field were asking me, what Solaris do? I was like, imagine you want to open a bank, a Revolut, for example, for I don't know, medical doctors or those who are selling cars. And if you need a lot of money, you need to invest money in licensing, in software, huge amount of things. You can go, take the license, take the software, and create your own design, or even you can outsource this thing too, and sell it to the target group, target audience. The single difference is that you need a lot of money for this. So for me, banking as a service, the definition is service that allows non-financial companies to sell and to offer financial and banking services. What do you think?
Okay, I think it's great. Maybe I will try to, from my side, to position it a little bit differently through the kitchen or restaurants, because certain examples might be like I'm trying to explain to a 5-year-old, like, what is the banking and what the difference in those business models. And let's assume you're a customer in a restaurant. So you're basically walking into the fancy restaurant. That's how you usually served as a customer in Neobanks. Like you have a digital application that's basically a menu. You are selecting certain things, and then how it's going to be delivered to you. And I think we can split into several processes. Like here we have the ready-made dish, like the dish that is served for you. But for getting this dish, you have a kitchen and you have a chef. So in this case, in my understanding, banking as a service, when someone is renting out the kitchen with all the appliances. So it doesn't provide you the process for doing something, or it doesn't provide you the ready-made dish, but is rather facilitating you instead of building own kitchen. And even with the kitchens, if you are in Horeca, you will need to get the license for the kitchen and for the process for preparing something, cooking. Like you will not be allowed by the local authorities to work as a restaurant if you don't have a specific kitchen which is licensed with the specific dishes. So in this case, I will say that the parallel is it's a restaurant where you are running as a chef and you're serving your customers, but the kitchen itself provided by the third party. And I will step forward. Like a lot of people are mixing up two different terms, like a BaaS and the core banking system. And I would say the core banking system is a chef, because you cannot distinguish or you cannot split those two, because in the end of the day, to provide the financial services, that's kind of the dish. Because I would like maybe from the menu A1, I would like to have an ability to receive the payments from my friends through the local payment rails. So basically that's a dish. But to get it, you need to have the kitchen and you need to have a chef. So the software, which is called core banking, usually it's someone who is taking care about your business process to deliver the product as a business line to your customer. But it happens through those kitchen where everything is made. And I know it's maybe a little bit witty, but it kind of helps to explain. So the kitchen is a BaaS. The chef who is preparing is core banking system, and the dish is the financial service which is served. So kind of my analogy.
I never thought about this. And by the way, I think maybe someone already invented this, but I just understood that it's a very interesting business idea to build a kitchen, not related to fintech. So guys, if you want to use this, just call me, give me some royalties, at least some money for this idea. But so you can build a kitchen with people who are people who will work in this kitchen can do any kind of dish, French cuisine, American cuisine, Italian cuisine, Indian cuisine, wherever. And you can outsource this thing you can basically give a license to those who want to open a restaurant, but they don't want to take care about the all this regulation thing, and they what they want to do is just sell on delivering food. That's it, and they can create their own restaurant, their own labeling, brand, and so on. But the kitchen itself will be on my side, and everything what I will do is just providing services to this virtual restaurants. So the same like BaaS.
But I think it's already happening because like one side which is different, franchise for the McDonald's. So basically what you're buying is usually the estate and the business process. So it's kind of the kitchen because you have a place, you have all the things specified, you have the set of the dishes that already pre-made. It's kind of pre-approved from the local authorities, because if you're going to open the I don't know, authentic restaurant with the new dishes, I think it will take longer than authorizing as McDonald's. So kind of in other industries, those model exists.
Food is already, recipes are passportized. They have local regulations compliance passed. They have everything. Yeah, the same thing with banking as a service. Okay. So what is the most, let's talk about the main features of banking as a service. I see this one. I see API, the holy cow of banking as a service, API, core banking, the existence of a core banking. And via API, basically the key feature can be embedded finance, which, white labeling. It's a descriptor. It also can be a key feature for banking as a service. And the feature called you don't have to talk with regulatory and compliance anymore.
Yeah.
Because this I think is the main features of BaaS. And core banking is a part of banking as a service. Core banking can exist without banking as a service, but it cannot operate without a license. So if you have money, you just can take core banking from someone else to purchase it to wherever, but you'll need a license. So you'll go and by yourself take this license. But if you don't want to go by yourself to take the license, then you purchase the license from another provider. It means that you're taking basically BaaS service. Yeah. I was thinking today when I was preparing for the call for this podcast, I was thinking about who needs BaaS, banking as a service. Of course, first what comes in mind are fintechs. And of course, the main customers are fintechs, because at the beginning, maybe you're just a payment service provider, payment service gateway. You provide services. Maybe you start to be an acquirer. You just sell some. But one moment you understand that you want to scale up your business. You want to increase the revenues. You want to increase the operations. And you need to come with additional features. And sometimes, most of the times, first what comes in mind is like, let me provide service like issuing the cards, for example. Let me, I don't know, I want to fight with Revolut. I want to give, or N26, or and then you start to increase and you start to search for banking as a service providers, and very often fintechs that starts as using banking as a service providers as an initial solution, those who will succeed in time, step by step, they will minimize the risk of being working under banking as a service platform. It's by sure, but banking as a service platform is the kitchen. If we continue this analogy, is the kitchen of creating new fintech startups or new financial companies or new neobanking. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
And maybe worth mention, like the thing that I see, sometimes it's really hard to distinguish like what company is using, because if we take a look on the cards service, sometimes it's much more clear that certain company is using third party as a service, like a card issuing, as outsourcing. Like Revolut, for a certain period of time, they were using Thread. And it's quite easy to understand if you don't have own BIN number. So you can go into the fintech, you can take a look on their BIN number, and if it's shared BIN, you can understand that they using someone to facilitate and have the faster market to the time to the market. The difference with the BaaS system, that by nature, the third parties which are used as BaaS, they're actually allowing you to use your own bank ID identificator, which means you cannot properly read like what is underneath. And like the example with the ClearBank, starting from signing the contract, you need to supply your sort code, if it's United Kingdom or BIC, to be operating as a financial institution and open accounts. And I think you can, in this case, distinguish if it's embedded banking, because ClearBank sort code and ClearBank BIK will be used if the license is umbrellaed for the fintech. So we have some kind of ability maybe to distinguish what is happening with the specific case. I'm thinking about my experience with the dozens, and fairly, we started with the Modulr finance sort code, not our own. Like when we were creating accounts, the code that we were using for receiving the fast payments was with the Modulr. And Modulr is also one of the example of BaaS. Like they a little bit beyond like just banking, because they providing the card issuing functionality, but pure case that there on the market is ClearBank. And I think everyone wants to know, like, who's using ClearBank? And as Dumitru, you correctly said, there are non-fintechs or the companies which are not fully licensed for opening accounts. Like right now, there is a good case with the Chip Finance. They started really, really narrow. So they were licensed for open banking. So what they did is a kind of budgeting application, which allows you aggregate your accounts and then suggest how to save the money on top of the activities that you have. Initially, like the license that we have is open banking license, like to aggregate accounts and initiate the payments. But they partnered with the ClearBank, and they using the account opening or banking as a service functionality on their side. But another example is Allica Bank. So it's targeting SMEs, and it's opening accounts with the ClearBank, and that's kind of full-fledged, I would say, institution, which is even licensed as retail bank, but they still using embedded or banking as a service to facilitate the business activity. So it's pretty interesting to explore and discuss those cases, like what is BaaS, what is core banking, and who's using them.
And what is embedded finance? Seems like a lot of people can also mixing embedded finance. When you were telling about like your cases in your example, in your experience, I was thinking that I remember the cases when BaaS were used by the companies who are totally not in the in fintechs. I mean, it's a fintech, but not in the field of bankings, payments, and so on. Is the invoicing companies who are providing invoicing products. I know cases where companies who are providing invoicing products, they increase their revenues because they basically created a new stream. They have access to the information. Who spends what, who spends how much, and why not to integrate this into existing application, and people via open banking, the same thing you just mentioned, can initiate. I mean, the customers can initiate the payments right away from the invoicing platforms, and they just the profit went rocket. Absolutely. I mean, in a good way. Let's just speak about, as you mentioned, let's speak about the difference between core banking, embedded finance, and banking as a service. So banking as a service is a tool that helps you to launch a fintech product, a classical fintech product. Classical means in the way of perception, where your user have access, B2B or B2C customer have access to an IBAN, to a card, a virtual physical card. By the way, it reminds one of our friends that are doing very, very unique cards, card solutions for customers, and you have basically everything you need to do is just and that the BaaS operator, the BaaS holder, will do the KC, KAB for you. Everything you need to do is just to comply to the rules of that provider, and build the marketing strategy. Focus on marketing, customer acquisition, on operational costs, and so on. And what is the main advantage here? You know the costs. You know everything. You can build. It's not and mostly the BaaS operators that are coming to you the feedback like, dude, don't do this. This is a mistake. We have experience. We have customers who made this. They can come with the best practices. They can help you to build your businesses easier. Of course, there is a risk because you're working with only one provider. One provider controls everything. It's correct. It's true, but it's minimizing the risk. As we mentioned, banking as a service doesn't work without core banking. So very good part of banking as a service is core banking. Not everyone understands what does mean a core banking. I mean, people from our industry, yes, they understand perfectly. Someone in details, someone not. But core banking is the name itself speak itself about. It's like core banking. You need a lot of, you insert all the procedures or all the policies you have, you start there, you applicate there, the fees are calculated there, the settlements, everything is there. So sometimes I know exist fintech companies, PSPs, for example, that sometimes they go and purchase specifically only core banking products, software, because they have so many transactions, they start to scale up. So they need an instrument for dealing with with this. It's not just a simple dashboard you create somewhere on Symfony, for example, if you're doing PHP or wherever. You need specific thing. And I know PSPs and gateways that went to, and that they started to be acquired, and they went to core, not, and they understood that they scaled up, they understood that they need something, a tool, something to manage all these transactions, to manage calculations and so on. And they went to banking as a service platform. They took this platform, they transformed that to work with, to onboard the merchants, mostly B2B segment, to onboard the merchants, to use the core banking. They get used to this. They learn how to work with core banking. They learn how to onboard customers quickly. And then they moved out from this banking as a service because they developed their own products, core banking, onboarding products. But it helped them a lot to increase the speed, to increase the sales, so to scale up. Banking as a service can go to customers like to B2C customers. With core banking, only banks or PSPs, but that's a very specific case. Mostly it's our banks or financial institutions. And I think just before the call, Igor, you said like, the question is, you want to purchase core banking. Do you have license or not? Which kind of license? For what do you need? And so on. With core banking doesn't open the bank account for your customers. It can manage the existing bank accounts, deposits, and so on. It can manage the credit cards, not issuing credit cards. Banking as a service help you or give you a possibility to issue the cards. Core banking can exist without API integration with our providers. Banking as a license cannot. I mean, you cannot work with banking as a service product without integrations. I mean, it's impossible. At least with acquirers, at least with MasterCard or Visa, you need an API. So and last but not least, the regulatory control. The regulations first is with BaaS. Core banking, of course, regulations, but it's more customized regulations. I mean, you take the base of the existing regulations, the base of regulations have this less than for BaaS, and you can mitigate here. You can discuss with the regulator. You can say like, hey, we want to do this, and this. Exists a way how we can minimize this impact of this regulation or not. And sometimes regulators are open to discuss this.
Maybe I will, once again, will try a little bit to add the context. I'm taking a look on the process, like who are the stakeholders? And if you're not a fintech, you can engage with the BaaS. And that actually, he's becoming the stakeholder of the business process because you're, publishing your mobile application, which is collecting certain data, and you're running the KYC through the banking as a service platform. And then there is a regulator. So you're kind of dancing as a three persons or three stakeholders. If we're talking about the core banking system and you're kind of licensed institution, you're acquiring something from core banking platform, but they're not the stakeholder of the business process. So they're supporting you with updates, they're supporting you maybe with the software which is allowing your business process. But in this tango, there is only you and regulator. That's one thing. And maybe worth to mention that if you're using BaaS, it's not 100% required to run their KYC. So with the BaaS case, you can be in two boats. One, I'm not regulated, and I'm using embedded finance. That's what it means and what it makes embedded finance. So basically, I'm going to ClearBank, I'm negotiating, they're giving me good to go with contracting, I'm signing the contract, they running their KYC, and actually I don't have my own license, and I'm not pushed by the regulator to have the KYC. But there is a still mode with the KYC when I'm licensed institution, and in this case, I'm running my KYC. Without KYC of the BaaS, I'm pushing the data into the APIs like their system. They kind of doing rechecking, but it's less strict. And basically, the heavy lifting for the KYC AML is done on this licensed institution. That's once again the case with the Allica bank because they running KYC on their side. They open an account with the ClearBank, and then this account is playing. And the second comment, I think it's also worth to highlight. Once again, when we were running the MEI institution dozens, the trick is, and it's not kind of that it's written somewhere, as a MEI, you have to have segregated account. So basically, regulator is saying that you need to have an account which is matching the balance of your total customer balance is somewhere safe in the bank. But the trick is that big banks, they are against MEI. So basically, they creating the competition. And we opened the account in a specific bank on the first day working as MEI. But everyone in the company understood that it's just a matter of time when this big high street bank will close our account. And another idea and the reason to utilize banking as a service for MEI is actually to keep the safeguard account for the MEI entity in this BaaS service. Because it's not just opening accounts for the customers, it's opening accounts for itself as an entity. And I think it's really important because as a financial institution, you're kind of in red market, like where the big players, they have huge capital, they have a technology, and it's kind of hard to play because one day you might face the situation that you have the MEI license, you open it in the high street bank, but then they decide to close. They don't need to even come up with a good idea like, oh, you broke something. Like,
Yes.
Sorry, we don't like you. Closed. So that's another reason why sometimes licensed institutions, they're actually using BaaS for closing two topics, like enable the technology for the customers, but being safe on their side too.
I just remember how once I saw an email from a bank. By this email, we inform you that your account has been suspended. Goodbye. Yeah. And I'm talking like me receiving this email as an individual, but as a company. Why?
No explanations. Yeah. So it's a tough world, and with the BaaS vendors, I think it's more contractual obligation, and they kind of overviewing you. It's the matter of the perception, because if I don't know, you go to top 3 banks in United Kingdom, AMIs, they not allies. Like they play negates because they come in after their market share, they come in after their customers. So I think there is a tension. But if we going into the digital platforms like BaaS, it's actually the customers. So they allies because the more as a business you have a proper business model, you have proper type of the clients, you're creating accounts, you're initiating payments, it brings the margin to this institution. So I think it's more usable for them to have you, to use the service from you. So it makes a lot of sense in this case.
I know that regulators, you just mentioned the thing, and I remembered how regulators sometimes react to this. So if you're keeping your safeguard account as AMI in a product that comes from BaaS, like for example, just a fintech created the banking product but took the solution from another provider, regulators sometimes, by the way, it's UK. It was a case from UK. I don't know, maybe now changed a little bit, but 2 years ago it was a situation when they said like, no, safeguard it as AMI safeguarding in a BaaS sounds like something, it's not good. Move to classical bank, and classical means high street bank, I would say. So, and it was a challenging search for us to find a bank that will be ready. Of course, if you're a new AMI company, okay, but we were already the company was already existing, and then I feel your pain, but so not all the time is a solution, but it can be a solution. Once again, depends as you as AMI, how do you interact with a regulator, and how do you interact with this?
What is the business model?
And what is the business model, of course. So for our listeners and watchers, the idea to create this podcast, the topic of today's podcast, was because we faced with a situation when people were mixing up the terms. And one of the mixing is exist people who are naming embedded finance. Embedded finance is equal to BaaS, and it's the same. Which is not. I mean, embedded finance is a feature of banking as a service. Embedded finance can exist without banking as a service. Banking as a service can exist without this feature. Why not? But the difference is in the concept. I mean, they're very close, but the difference is that they're closely related, but the purpose is different, and the ecosystem is different. BaaS is the infrastructure, the power, inclusively core banking, so on, that can give embedded finance the place to work. Work cannot. It depends if you have this business model. By enabling any type of companies to start to provide banking services, where embedded finance is also plays the role of an enabler, but the role of enabler is more for non-financial companies to integrate banking solutions in their existing business. Very close to what I told you about the banking as a service for invoicing companies, but the examples I know is not only embedded finance, it's much more than this. And embedded finance is a part of banking as a service, but a little bit different. And we heard, and we were surprised with Igor, that we saw that people are mixing up these two terms. And by the way, this was the main reason why we decided to open to make this podcast today.
Okay, and to add up, we know what is BaaS, we know what is the embedded finance, and to add up the core banking system. And usually the core banking, it's the product. It's not a business model. Yes, it has the business model in companies who are selling this product, but the difference is that you have Temenos, you have a lot of other vendors like Mambu who is selling their product, which is core banking. And usually the system can be installed on premises, like in your infrastructure. And those products went through a lot of cycle of evolutions. And right now, most of the players, they provide in SaaS possibility. Like you can acquire the product, and it still will be run on the on-premise or on cloud solutions by those companies, but you will utilize them similar as a BaaS. But it doesn't make it BaaS because, like, if you take a look on Mambu, it covers the business process. And as I said, you will not be the part of this like a 3-person tango because you are acquiring the software, you are a licensed institution, and the regulator will be asking directly you how you doing the KYC, how you storing the data, how you processing data, how you making it that it's secure, which is kind of different with the BaaS because in this case, BaaS is by license, is regulated by the authority, and they will ask like how they protecting the data, how they properly KYC in their customer through the embedded finance or BaaS integration. So kind of the shift for me is accountability in those two different cases.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Also the difference is that BaaS gives you the difference between BaaS and core banking. BaaS serves for total different purpose with core banking. BaaS is enabler for scaling up, for diversification of your product, or create a new product, and so on. Core banking is just a solution, technical solution for this. Core banking, I mean, you can outsource you can rent the core banking. But in this case, this is SaaS, not BaaS. You can outsource. I know we all of us, we know companies that outsource SaaS solutions, core banking as a SaaS solutions, and maybe Igor, you even created some core banking systems in your life, and you know how it works. Yeah, so it's absolutely totally different, and the way how people are messing with this, sometimes it's strange, but unfortunately exists this issue on the market. So we discussed about banking as a service. By the way, I observed that banking as a service in last 6-8 months started to be very, very fancy topic. And not only fancy in the field where we are operating in fintech field, but also outside of this. And I think this is because of embedded finance. And maybe this mixing up the terms, embedded finance BaaS, help BaaS itself to be promoted. Because more and more businesses start to think about, I want to upsell my products, my services, my whatever I'm offering there. What I can do this? Oh, buy now, pay later, as an example. Or, instant credit online for purchasing this car, as an example. Yes, it's embedded finance. And some customers decide, based on their competitors' money budget, decide that they want an entire banking as a service platform, not only embedded finance. Or sometimes they start with embedded finance. So embedded finance can be a way to come to the decision to use banking as a service. So, yeah. So we discussed, returning back, we discussed about banking as a service. We discussed about core banking. We discussed about embedded finance. We tried to disseminate the differences between this. And now let's come back to what I said in the beginning, the definition. So at the beginning, I said the definition of banking as a service. So banking as a service is a business model that allows banking companies to offer financial products and services to our companies. And I think the definition a bit changed during the discussion. Not in the way that changed the meaning of it, but added some colors. Banking as a service is the enabler. Banking as a service is enabler for scaling up your fintech business. Banking as a service can be the most important customers are fintech companies, but not only. And banking as a service can live without embedded finance, cannot live without core banking, but better it's to use all three together: banking as a service, core banking, and to make it to create big products and create big possibilities for your customers to grow up, because embedded finance can help people to come to businesses, banking as a service.
Okay. Maybe I will try to sum up the difference once again. So in this case, let's assume I'm a delivery company. And if I'm going into the licensing being as a financial institution, I would go to the core banking systems, I will purchase the product. And the difference is that this cost of the license or of the software that I'm purchasing as core banking service to use onto this license is actually capital expense. So it's CapEx. Yes. But if I took a look on the market, I would like to try some kind of new business model to hold an account for our customers in my delivery application, like top up, and then you can purchase with the balance that you have instead of paying with a card. In this case, I will go to BaaS, and the payments that I will do monthly for the BaaS is actually operating expenses. So that's kind of also gives a little bit of the flavor and the color that if you aim for longer strategy, it usually license itself and then using the software which is facilitating your process. And maybe a little bit about the numbers. I was fortunate like last week to talk on the Vienna Banking Forum and the week before on the World Banking Forum. And I have a slide which is projecting worldwide banking as a service market. Maybe that's an answer why everyone talking about those fancy numbers. So in 2025, the market size is estimated as 6.7 billions. United States dollars like globally, but by 2030 it's estimated as a 21 billion. So kind of gives a flavor that market will in the next 5 years it will grow almost like a 4 times or like 3 times something, which is really good number. Like it gives a space for a lot of players on the market to look after this niche to become your operating expenses and start faster with the less financial budgets and with the less requirements from the regulator.
It gives you possibility with less risks and with the easiest path, because as you mentioned, you don't need to buy a license. You just take it and use it. Maximum API license, yeah. With this will help you to make a research of the market, to understand how it works, gain sufficient experience, and then you can be ready to make the next step. Or exist businesses, but can exist all their time, all their life, to be based on BaaS solutions. And this is another business model. But for me, banking as a service is a solution for those who want to start a big fintech company, big fintech product, but they want not to risk with everything when they are doing this. Thanks God, we are not living in a period when you need to explain to people what means a neobanking. You don't need time and a lot of money and resources to take a banking license, because you can rent the existing banking license from someone else, and it helps you to enable your business to make it to provide good services. And competition on the market is a competition, is the classical rule of competition. Competition is the better for the customer, because it provides services, better prices, better. So banking as a service is a part of our future. Also, it is very, very linked to the fact that neobanking is a part of our future. So one of my friends, we'll finish, I think this will be the last, but one of my friends told me several years ago one thing. When we will see that banks from Switzerland start to develop neobanking platforms, it means that the end of classical banking is very, very close. And I observed that, and I think I agreed that moment with him totally. And now, like last 1 year or a year and a half, I saw the trend that a lot of Switzerland banks started to develop neobanking processes. And because of neobanking, BaaS came like a natural thing, and just open the door on the market with a leg. Just, hey, what's up? It's me. I'm BaaS. What? Remember 3 years ago, BaaS, it was a no name, except maybe this acronym was used in Arab world, but we will not mention this politics here. But except that region, nobody knew what means BaaS. And by the way, this meaning in the Arab region is totally different. And now BaaS is like everywhere in fintech is like BaaS, 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 BaaS. So it's a good evolution. Let's see what in a year or two, what kind of solutions will appear in that period, in that time with for BaaS and embedded finance.
Yeah. In 1 year, definitely we will do another session to refine and give some updates in this business model. And the usual question, do you have a book to recommend if you have something?
I will be very, very honest with you. I don't have to recommend a specific book today, but I will tell you my experience with the books, what happened 2 weeks ago. I understood that I need to have close to me a book or an aggregation of books where I will find all the information, all the solutions, all kind of examples regarding driving the car. Why? Because I finished my driving school, I think when I was 16, means like a lot of years ago, 20 years ago. And from that period of time, not so many things changed in the rules of driving. But I changed my vision about one thing or another. Plus, I heard different stories from different people how to do in this way. So best practices. And I said like, well, I don't have penalties. I don't have fees to do. I think it's good. But I just decided to let me purchase a book. And I found that book. It's a Romanian. It probably was published in Romania. So I honestly will advise to all of you, if specifically you have more like 15 years of driving experience, even 10, just take a book with all the rules, driving rules of your country, with all the, road signs, with everything, and just read it sometimes. Just, okay, oh, nice, appeared a new sign. Or, oh, by this situation, I have to do it this way or in this way. And you'll see that you basically will find a lot of interesting things, new interesting things. So honestly, this is my recommendation for this week. I know that for you, Igor, this is totally unexpected recommendation. But I will honestly recommend just purchase a book with all the rules and also it would be great if there will be all these legal new laws appeared in the last 2, 3, 4 years. Yeah, but regulate somehow the driving. So just take this book, put it somewhere, just take a look at least once per week or in the car or at your own.
I would not suggest doing this in the car while driving, but
while driving, no, yes.
But it's a good moment to glance at and refresh certain knowledge if you're an experienced driver, or even if it's you're unexperienced driver.
Sorry, by the way, this helps me to teach my daughter, and she takes this book. Everything is with colors, and she looks at what is this. Well, this is like this. So. Theoretically, it's an impact for future generations, I said.
Okay. Thank you for the recommendation. We're not limited to the fintech's books, but reading it's kind of stimulating the thinking process. So my perception or my vision that it should be done. Like it helps a lot to get the concentrated knowledge in different areas. So that's one also is a really good example. And today, from my side, I will recommend Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. It's not directly connected to the financial institutions, but I think it gives really good exposure how we think and how we tend to think. So it's really a good analogy where you need to take slow with your decision and perceiving the things, and when you need to be and how you need to be fast with the thinking. So it's pretty good reading and it's quite insightful. So I recommend this book today.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, Igor, to have this podcast with you, as usually. Now we are promising that next sessions will be also very interesting with interesting topics to together. We are thinking with Igor to extend our as a permanent solution, as a permanent tradition, to extend the idea of having the third co-host. So to invite people, if you think it's a good idea, we'll be happy to hear your feedback in the comments, in in the channels, social media. Just provide the feedback if you're tired to see only two faces, our two faces. We'll understand it, and we'll make we'll do a lot. We'll invest a lot of forces to invite other people here, and also give a possibility for others to share their experience and knowledge. Thank you very much to all of you that you listened our podcast.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to discuss this matter today. And yes, we're looking to have more guests. If you have any suggestions, please reach out in the comments or social media. We'll take a look, and then we will do the invitation for the guests in this industry, or maybe even different industries, to explore what is happening over there. So thank you for your time today. It was a pleasure. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.